Eat in the laundry room, old man, my daughter said. She put my plate beside the washer like I was one more thing she wanted out of sight. Cold turkey, a plastic fork, a folding tray that shook every time the spin cycle started. Then she smiled and said, "You don't contribute anymore." From the dining room, I heard guests praising her beautiful house. The same house I had quietly paid $51,300 to save. My late wife's pie recipe was on the dessert table. My chair was not. I sat beside the dryer, holding that little recipe card, while my daughter told everyone, "We worked so hard to keep this home." That was when I opened my phone. The next mortgage support payment was scheduled, $2,850. I looked at the laundry room door, then canceled it before dessert. Welcome to Final Act Revenge. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Please take care of your health while you listen. Because my daughter did not know the old man beside the washing machine was the reason her house still had a dining room. My name is Orson Whitcomb. I am 74 years old, and I have lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan long enough to know that a house can look warm from the street and still feel cold inside. For more than 30 years, I worked at a credit union in mortgage servicing. That sounds boring. Maybe it was. But boring work taught me what people lose sleep over. I saw families come in with envelopes folded too many times, asking why their payment changed. I explained escrow shortages to men who had never missed a bill in their lives. I watched mothers cry in parking lots because property taxes went up and groceries did too. A mortgage is never just a number. It is a bedroom with a child's poster still taped to the wall. It is a kitchen table with scratches from homework and birthday cakes. It is a front porch where a tired man stands at the end of the day, hoping the bank does not take the key before he can fix what went wrong. I knew that. So did my wife, Alice. Alice Whitcomb ran the lunchroom at an elementary school for 26 years. Later, she volunteered at the church pantry, where she treated canned beans like treasure and lonely people like guests. She had one rule in our home. If someone is family, they get a chair before they get a plate. She said it every Thanksgiving. Not loudly, not like a speech, just while setting an extra fork beside a napkin because some widow from church might come by, or some neighbor might have nowhere else to go. To Alice, a chair meant belonging. Food fed the body. A chair fed the part of you that needed to know you were wanted. After she died, I kept that rule as best I could. I kept her recipe cards in a metal tin, pumpkin pie, cranberry bread, green bean casserole with too much onion on top because Alice said holidays were no time to be reasonable. My daughter, Kelsey Dane, loved those recipes. At least, she loved what they looked like on a table. Kelsey was not always cold. I want that understood. When Alice passed, Kelsey cried so hard in my kitchen that I had to hold her upright by the shoulders. She was my girl, my only daughter. The child who used to fall asleep on the couch with one hand wrapped around Alice's apron string. But grief and shame can change a person quietly. Kelsey became a boutique home organizer. She made other people's houses look calm, clean, and successful. She could turn a cluttered pantry into something worthy of a magazine photograph. And somewhere along the way, she started treating her own family the same way. Arrange what looks good. Hide what does not. Her husband, Brent Dane, made that worse. Brent worked as a regional sales trainer, the kind of man who used words like mindset and lifestyle while ignoring the bills in the drawer. Their house looked beautiful. White kitchen island, wide dining room, soft lights over the table. But I knew what most guests did not. That house was bleeding money. Escrow went up, insurance went up, property taxes went up, Brent's commission went down. And Kelsey called me one night sounding like a child again. "Dad," she whispered, "I don't know who else to ask." So I helped, quietly. Because Alice had asked me before she died, "Don't let money be the thing that makes our family cruel." I tried to honor that, maybe too much. Because by the time Thanksgiving came, Kelsey had learned to call my help private when she meant invisible. She said, "Dad, please don't bring up mortgage work at dinner." I asked, "Why would I?" She smiled without warmth. "People don't need to know every struggle." I should have heard Alice in that moment. I should have remembered that a family table without truth is just furniture. But fathers make excuses for daughters. We call pride stress. We call shame pressure. We call disrespect a difficult season. And sometimes, while we are busy protecting a child from embarrassment, we do not notice they have already decided we are the embarrassing part. Kelsey's house looked like the kind of place people believed was safe. That was the trick of it. From the curb, it had clean windows, a painted front door, 2 porch lanterns, and a wreath that changed with the season. Inside, the kitchen island was white. The dining room opened perfectly toward the living room, and every throw pillow seemed placed by someone who had studied photographs of happiness. Kelsey was good at that. She could make a room look peaceful, even when the people inside it were barely holding together. Brent liked the house even more than she did, I think. To him, it was proof. Proof that he was not falling behind. Proof that the commission cuts at work were temporary. Proof that the credit card balances were just cash flow timing, as he called it. I have known men like Brent my whole life. They do not lie first to others. They lie first to themselves, then get angry when family members refuse to join in. The mortgage had been manageable when they first bought the place. Then property taxes climbed, insurance climbed, groceries climbed. Everything climbed except Brent's income. By 2026, that was not unusual. A lot of middle-class families were living inside houses they could still photograph but could barely afford. The difference was, Kelsey and Brent wanted everyone to see the photograph, and nobody to see the payment schedule. My granddaughter Paige saw more than they realized. She was 19, studying at community college, working part-time as a bank teller, and old enough to understand that bills do not disappear because adults change the subject. Paige had Alice's stubborn honesty. She asked clean questions. That made people uncomfortable. One afternoon, a few days before Thanksgiving, she stopped by my house with a stack of bank training papers under one arm and said, "Grandpa, did Mom ever tell you the bank worked something out on the mortgage?" I was rinsing a coffee mug. The water kept running longer than it needed to. "She had a hard year," I said. "That's not what I asked." No, it wasn't. But a grandfather does not always answer the question that could split a family open. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands. Sometimes lenders make arrangements. Paige studied me like she was reading fine print. Sometimes family does too. That child had always been too sharp for comfort. I smiled a little. Your grandmother would have liked you in a courtroom. She would have liked me at a table where people told the truth. There it was. Alice again, coming through a 19-year-old girl with tired eyes and a bank badge still clipped to her sweater. I changed the subject. Cowardly, maybe. But I was still trying to protect Kelsey. That is what parents do long after their children stop deserving the protection. At Kelsey's house, Thanksgiving preparation became less like cooking and more like staging. Kelsey had printed a seating plan. She had rented extra chargers for the plates. She had candles that smelled like cinnamon and some kind of expensive wood. She had Alice's pumpkin pie recipe copied onto a little card near the dessert table, as if tradition were another decoration. Tori Benson was coming. That mattered to Kelsey more than she admitted. Tori was a lifestyle realtor, the kind of woman who could turn a dinner table into an online post about gratitude, resilience, and home energy. Kelsey wanted that approval. Brent wanted it too, because Tori knew people who bought houses, sold houses, and talked loudly about who was doing well. The night before Thanksgiving, Brent called me. Not Kelsey, Brent. That was rare. "Orson," he said, using my first name in that smooth way of his. "Tomorrow should be a stress-free day." "I hope so." "Right. So maybe keep the old credit union stories light. I sat back in my chair. What stories? You know, late notices, escrow, hardship stuff. People don't need that energy at dinner. That energy kept a lot of people in their homes. He chuckled, not kindly. Sure, but your daughter has worked hard to build a certain atmosphere. A certain atmosphere. That was what I had become. Bad atmosphere. Foreclosure energy in a navy sweater. After we hung up, I sat with the phone in my hand for a long minute. Alice used to say people tell you the truth by accident when they think they are being polite. Brent had just told me mine. I was welcome at Thanksgiving, as long as I did not remind anyone why the house was still standing. Later, Paige told me what she heard in the kitchen that same evening. Brent was leaning against the counter while Kelsey arranged napkins. He said, "Just keep your dad away from the main table if Tori starts asking questions." Kelsey whispered, "Brent, stop." But she did not say no. That mattered. A no would have ended it. A whisper only softened it. Brent went on, "Your dad brings foreclosure energy into the room." Paige said Kelsey looked toward the dining room, toward the perfect table, toward the place settings and candles and Alice's recipe card. Then she said, very quietly, "We just need boundaries." Boundaries. That word can be healthy. It can also become a velvet rope used to keep the person who helped you survive from standing too close to the picture. By the time I arrived the next day with cranberry bread in a paper bag, I still wanted to believe my daughter would remember who I was. Not the payment, not the support. Me, her father. But when I stepped into that house and saw the dining table already full, with one folding tray leaning against the laundry room wall, I understood Thanksgiving was not being prepared as a family dinner. It was being staged like an open house where I was the flaw they planned to hide. Paige saw the first email 2 days before Thanksgiving. Not because she was snooping. That is what Kelsey said later, of course. People always call it snooping when someone finds the truth they left unlocked. Paige was helping her mother organize the pantry because Kelsey wanted every shelf to look like the kind of shelf a guest might accidentally admire. Clear bins, printed labels, flour in glass jars, pasta standing upright like soldiers. Kelsey had her iPad open on the counter beside a stack of napkins. A notification slid across the screen. Third-party mortgage support received. Paige saw it, only for a second. But she worked part-time as a bank teller. She knew enough to know that phrase did not mean the bank worked with us. It meant someone outside the borrower had paid. "Mom?" Paige asked. "Who's the third party?" Kelsey's hand moved fast. Too fast. She turned the iPad face down. "It's just bank language." Paige stared at her. "Bank language for what?" "For grown-up problems," Kelsey said, sharper than she meant to. That was Kelsey's way when fear touched money. She did not yell first. She got clean, precise, cold around the edges. Paige backed off, but she did not forget. That same afternoon, Brent took a phone call in the garage. He probably thought the dryer was loud enough to cover his voice. It was not. Paige was in the hallway folding towels when she heard him say, "December support is still scheduled, right?" A pause. Then Brent again. "We need the extension. 1 more year would get us breathing room." Another pause. "Her father can afford it." Paige stood perfectly still with a towel in her hands. Her father. Not Grandpa, not Orson. Not the man bringing cranberry bread tomorrow because he still believed Thanksgiving meant family. Just her father. A resource. A pressure valve. Someone to squeeze when the house got too expensive for the picture they were trying to maintain. Later, I came by with the cranberry bread wrapped in foil and a little paper bag from the church pantry. Alice had always reused bags until they gave up completely. I suppose I kept that habit because grief makes a man loyal to strange things. Kelsey opened the door and looked at the bag before she looked at me. "Dad," she said, "you didn't have to bring anything." "I know. That's why they call it bringing something." She gave a thin smile. The house smelled like cinnamon, turkey stock, and furniture polish. Everything looked perfect enough to make me uncomfortable. Tori Benson was expected later to peek at the setup, which sounded to me like something people did when dinner had become an audition. Kelsey walked with me toward the kitchen, then stopped. "Dad, tomorrow, can we keep conversation light?" I set the cranberry bread on the counter. What kind of light? No mortgage talk, no credit union stories, no reminders about how hard things have been. I looked at my daughter for a long second. Was I planning to give a speech on escrow? She looked away. "You know what I mean." I did. That was the problem. She did not want peace. She wanted editing. Before I could answer, Bonnie Ames came in through the side door carrying a casserole dish with both hands. Bonnie had worked with Alice at the school lunchroom years ago, and she still had the direct eyes of a woman who had served food to children who tried pretending they were not hungry. "Orson," she said warmly, "you better be staying for dinner tomorrow." "I was invited." Bonnie glanced at Kelsey. "Were you?" A small silence followed. Kelsey laughed too quickly. "Of course he was." But Bonnie did not miss things. Women like Bonnie and Alice spent their lives noticing who got seconds, who hid bruises under sleeves, and who smiled too hard when bills were late. After Bonnie left, Paige found me near the hallway. She lowered her voice. "Grandpa, did you help Mom with the mortgage?" I looked toward the kitchen. Kelsey was arranging Alice's recipe card beside a pie dish, smoothing it flat like a museum label. "Your mother had a hard year," I said. Paige's eyes filled with frustration. "That is not an answer." No, it was not. But the truth had weight, and I did not want to put it on a 19-year-old girl's shoulders during a holiday. I touched her arm gently. Sometimes family helps quietly. Her face changed. She understood more from those 4 words than I meant to give her. Just then, Tori Benson's voice floated in from the front hall, bright and polished. "Kelsey, this table is gorgeous. Honestly, you make recovery look effortless." Recovery. That word made Paige look at me. Then we both heard Kelsey laugh and say, "We've handled everything ourselves." Paige's jaw tightened. I stayed quiet. Not because it did not hurt, because a father sometimes swallows the truth to keep his daughter from choking on shame in public. But Paige looked from the dessert table to Alice's recipe card, then back at me. And I think that was the moment she realized her mother was ready to serve Alice's memory at the table, while hiding the man who had kept the table standing. Thanksgiving began with candles. That is what I remember first. Not the turkey, not the voices, the candles. Kelsey had placed them down the center of the dining table, all cream-colored and even, like little soldiers guarding a version of family that looked better from across the room than it felt up close. The plates matched. The napkins were folded into little pockets. Alice's pumpkin pie recipe sat beside the dessert table in a small frame, as if my late wife had become part of the decoration. I stood in the living room holding a glass of water nobody had offered me. That is a strange thing to notice. But old men notice the small omissions. No one asks if you want a chair. No one asks if your knees hurt. No one asks if you need help with your coat. They just assume silence means comfort. Kelsey moved through the house like a hostess in a magazine. "Brent, can you light the last candle? Paige, move those cups. Miles, don't touch the pie." Then she turned toward Tori Benson and smiled so warmly you would never have guessed she had been stiff with me all morning. Tori looked around the dining room and said, "Kelsey, this is beautiful. Honestly, you two make it look so easy." Brent laughed. "We had a rough year," he said, lifting his glass a little, "but we pulled through." Xiang. That word sat wrong in my ear. A man who has paid another man's mortgage learns to hear pronouns very carefully. One of the guests, a neighbor I barely knew, asked, "Didn't you two have some mortgage trouble last year?" The room shifted slightly. Just slightly. Kelsey's smile did not fall. That was what hurt. She had practiced this. "Oh, the bank worked with us," she said. "We made it happen." We made it happen. I looked down at my hands. They were old hands now, veins raised, knuckles stiff, hands that had signed support forms, sold Alice's camper, skipped my own roof repair, and moved money around at my kitchen table after midnight, because my daughter had cried on the phone and said she did not know who else to ask. The bank did not do that. The bank did not sit alone with a calculator, deciding which bill could wait. The bank did not fold away a widow's travel dream and call it family. Paige heard it too. She was standing near the hallway with a serving spoon in her hand. Her face changed when Kelsey said it. Not anger, exactly. More like disappointment finding a shape. Bonnie Ames saw me from across the room. She knew enough about Alice to know when a story was missing a person. I could have corrected Kelsey right then. I could have said, "No, sweetheart, the bank did not save this house. I did." But there were guests holding glasses. There was Miles sitting near the table, swinging his feet. There was Paige watching me with tears already gathering. And there was still some tired, foolish part of me that wanted to spare my daughter humiliation even while she was building mine. So I said nothing. Kelsey caught my eye for half a second. I do not know what she saw there. Maybe warning, maybe hurt, maybe nothing useful to her image. She turned away first. A few minutes later, Paige found me near the hallway. "Grandpa," she whispered, "was that true?" "What part?" "The bank worked with them." I looked toward the dining room. Kelsey was laughing at something Tori said. Brent had one hand on the back of his chair like a man posing for a photograph nobody had taken yet. I kept my voice low. "Your mother had help. From you." I did not answer. Paige stepped closer. "Grandpa." There was Alice in that one word. The same refusal to let a man hide behind gentleness when truth was standing right there, waiting to be invited in. I looked at my granddaughter and said, "The bank didn't sit at my kitchen table deciding which bill I could skip." Her eyes filled immediately. "How much? Paige, how much?" I shook my head. "Not tonight." She wiped one tear quickly with the back of her hand, angry at herself for crying. "Mom told people she handled it." She was ashamed. "That doesn't make it right." "No," I said. "It doesn't." From the kitchen, Brent's voice floated toward us. "Kelsey, after dessert, don't forget we still need to talk to him." Paige froze. I did too. Kelsey answered too quietly for me to hear everything, but I caught enough. "Not now. Wait until people settle." Brent said, "One more year would get us breathing room." Paige looked at me. Her face had gone pale. "Before I tell you what happened in that laundry room, let me ask you something. If you had quietly paid your daughter's mortgage for 18 months, then heard her tell guests the bank saved the house while she treated you like an embarrassment, would you stay silent for peace? Or would you stop the payments and let the truth sit at the table? Tell me honestly what you would have done. Because standing in that hallway, I still did not want revenge. I wanted my daughter to remember herself before I had to remind her. Then Tori Benson called from the dining room, bright and careless. "Kelsey, where is your father sitting?" The house went quiet in that tiny way houses do when everyone pretends not to listen. Kelsey looked at Brent. Brent looked toward the laundry room. Then he leaned close to her and said just loud enough for me to hear, "Just keep him somewhere quiet." Kelsey picked up a paper plate. She smoothed her face into a polite smile. And when she walked toward me, I knew that smile. It was the kind people wear when they have already decided where you belong. Kelsey came toward me with that paper plate in her hand. Not a dinner plate. Not the kind she had set for everyone else at the table. A paper plate. The thin kind that bends if the gravy touches the wrong spot. She had put turkey on it already, a small piece, not carved from the good center of the bird either, more like an edge she could spare without disturbing the picture on the platter. Beside it were mashed potatoes, a spoonful of green beans, and a roll that had already gone cold. "Dad," she said softly, "can you come help me for a second?" I looked at the plate, then at her face. "Help you eat?" Her smile tightened. "Please don't start." That sentence told me this had already been planned. People say, "Don't start," when they have already started something themselves and want you blamed for reacting. I followed her down the hallway anyway. The dining room was full of voices behind me. Brent was laughing at something Tori Benson had said. Someone complimented the table again. Miles asked if he could have extra cranberry sauce. Paige stood near the archway, watching us with worry she was too young to hide properly. Kelsey stopped at the laundry room. The washer was running. The dryer had 10 minutes left. A folding tray had been set up beside the washing machine. Set up, not found. Not improvised. Prepared. That was the part that hurt first. The laundry room smelled like detergent and dryer sheets, not turkey and cinnamon. A basket of towels sat on top of the dryer. A bottle of stain remover stood beside my water glass. My place setting. A folding tray, a paper plate, a plastic fork. A room where dirty things waited to be handled later. Kelsey set the plate down. "Eat in the laundry room, old man." The words were quiet. That made them worse. Cruelty whispered to avoid witnesses is still cruelty. I looked at my daughter. For a second, I did not see the woman with perfect hair and a staged dining table. I saw the little girl Alice used to lift into a kitchen chair because she wanted to help stir pumpkin filling. That memory made my chest ache. "Kelsey," I said, "there is no chair for me?" She glanced back toward the hallway. "There isn't room. There's a folding chair beside the buffet. That's for extra serving space." "Serving space has a better seat than I do?" Her face flushed. "Dad, please. Tonight matters to us." I looked at the cold turkey. "And I don't?" She inhaled sharply, like I had embarrassed her by asking the question out loud. "You don't contribute anymore," she said. "I'm sorry, but you don't. You come in here with your old stories and your sad looks, and you make everything feel heavy." The washer shifted into a stronger spin. The tray trembled. So did the water in the plastic cup. Brent appeared behind her, leaning one shoulder against the doorframe. "It's quieter in here, Orson," he said. "Less overwhelming." Less overwhelming. That was a polished little lie, a way to dress humiliation in the clothes of concern. "I worked in mortgage servicing for 30 years, I said. "I know when someone is hiding a bad loan behind nice language." Brent's smile thinned. Kelsey stepped between us quickly. "Can we not do this?" "We are doing it," I said. "You just picked the room." Tori Benson passed the hallway then. She glanced into the laundry room, saw me, saw the tray, saw Kelsey's face, and made the quick decision polite people make when truth would cost them comfort. She looked away. "Kelsey?" she called too brightly. "The table looks amazing." Kelsey turned toward her voice and called back, "Thank you. Dad likes it quiet." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because sometimes a lie is so neat it folds itself. Bonnie Ames appeared behind Tori a moment later. She did not look away. Bonnie saw the tray, saw the washer, saw the paper plate. Then her eyes found mine. "Oh, Orson," she whispered. There was Alice in the way she said it. Not pity. Witness. Kelsey noticed Bonnie and grew flustered. "It's just for a few minutes," she said. Bonnie's mouth hardened. Alice would haunt this washer before she let him eat here. For one blessed second, my daughter had no answer. I shook my head slightly at Bonnie, not because I wanted her quiet, because I was not ready to make a battlefield out of Thanksgiving in front of Miles. Not yet. Bonnie understood. She always had. She stepped back, but she left the door open wider than Kelsey wanted. That small act gave me more dignity than my own daughter had offered. I sat down. The folding chair scraped against the floor. The tray was too low for my knees. The washer hummed beside me, warm and indifferent. Kelsey watched me sit as if the hard part were over. "Thank you," she said. I looked at her. For what? For not making this difficult. That was when something inside me went very still. Not angry yet. Still. The way a lake gets before ice forms. She returned to the dining room with Brent. Their voices faded into the laughter and clinking silverware. The laundry room door stayed half open, just enough for me to hear them pretending nothing had happened. I cut the turkey with the plastic fork. It bent immediately. The dryer buzzer went off right then. Loud, sharp, perfectly timed. Even the dryer had better manners than my daughter. I sat there with my cold plate, listening to the celebration I had helped keep under that roof. Then Miles appeared at the doorway. He was holding his napkin in both hands. "Grandpa?" I forced my face to soften. "Hey, buddy." "Why are you eating here?" Children ask the questions adults spend their lives decorating. I looked at the washer, then at the plate. "Your mom needed more room," he frowned. "There's room by me." Before I could answer, Kelsey's voice came from the hallway. "Miles, come sit down." "But Grandpa..." "Now!" Miles looked at me with confusion, and something worse. Understanding beginning too early. He left, slowly. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out Alice's recipe card. Pumpkin pie. Her handwriting, a little smear of vanilla near the corner from some Thanksgiving long before this one. I placed it beside my plate. Outside, Kelsey's voice rose warmly. "This pie was my mother's recipe. It's what makes this house feel like home." I stared at the recipe card in the laundry room, and for the first time that night, I understood the full insult. My wife's memory had a place at the table. I did not. Then my phone lit up beside the plate. Mortgage support reminder. Recurring third-party mortgage support. $2,850 scheduled for December 1st. I looked at that reminder, then at the cold turkey beside the washer, and understood that my money had a seat in that house, even when I did not. The mortgage reminder sat on my phone like a quiet witness. $2,850. Scheduled for December 1st. A plain number. No tears in it. No family history. No cold turkey. No folding tray. No daughter telling her father he no longer contributed while sitting under a roof he had helped keep from collapsing. Just a number. That is the cruel thing about money. It remembers what people try to make emotional enough to forget. I stared at the reminder until the washer beside me shifted into another slow rumble. Then I tapped the mortgage portal. The screen opened with my saved login. I knew every page of that system better than I knew the buttons on my television remote. 30 years in mortgage servicing will do that to a man. You learn where truth hides. Payment history. Third-party support. Hardship arrangement. There it was, 18 months. Every payment lined up like soldiers. $2,850. $2,850. $2,850. Again and again. I did the math in my head before the portal showed me the total. $51,300. That was not counting the escrow shortage. That was not counting the $9,400 I covered when Kelsey called me crying because property taxes had jumped, insurance had adjusted, and the servicer wanted the shortage cured before the account slipped into real danger. I remembered that call. Her voice had been small. "Dad, I can't tell Brent I'm scared. He'll just say we need to think bigger." Think bigger. That was Brent's favorite phrase when the bills got smaller in the bank account and larger on paper. I drove to her house that night with a folder, a calculator, and the kind of fatherly hope that makes old men stupid in familiar ways. Kelsey sat at the kitchen island with mascara under her eyes. Not staged, then. Not polished. Just my daughter. "I don't want to lose the house," she whispered. I looked around at the walls, at Paige's school photo, at Miles's little drawings on the fridge, at the dining room Alice had once said got beautiful afternoon light. So I helped. 1 month first, then 3, then the escrow shortage, then the recurring support, because the servicer needed stability and Kelsey needed time. At least that was what I told myself. Time. Parents give their children time and call it love, even when the children begin treating it like rent. I did not co-sign. I did not buy the house. I did not take ownership. I set up voluntary third-party mortgage support under a family mortgage hardship support agreement with June Abbott as witness. June had worked compliance at the credit union longer than some people stay married, and she had warned me from the start. "Orson," she said, "help is a bridge. Do not let them turn it into a basement." I should have listened harder, but Kelsey was crying, and Paige was in college, and Miles still needed a safe bedroom. And Alice's voice still lived in my conscience, saying family gets a chair before a plate. So I paid. I sold Alice's camper that spring. That hurt worse than I admitted. It had been small, beige, old, and ridiculous to back into a campsite. Alice loved it anyway. She used to say one day we would drive north, stop near the lake, and eat sandwiches like people who had finally learned to rest. After she died, I kept that camper because some dreams are too tender to sell. Then Kelsey needed the escrow shortage covered. So I sold it. I told myself Alice would understand. Maybe she would have. But sitting beside that washer with a paper plate in front of me, I wondered if Alice would have asked me why I sold a memory to protect people who could not even save me a chair. My phone buzzed. Paige. She must have been just outside the hallway because the message came fast. "Grandpa, I found it. It was you, wasn't it?" Before I could answer, another message came through. A screenshot. Third-party mortgage support. Orson do my name. There it was, clean and undeniable on her screen. I closed my eyes. Paige had not deserved to learn the truth from a banking screenshot during Thanksgiving dinner. No child should have to discover that adults have been using silence as wallpaper. I typed slowly. "Don't carry this tonight." Her answer came almost immediately. "Mom made you carry it alone." That one hurt. Not because it was sharp, because it was true. I put the phone down and looked at Alice's recipe card beside my plate. Pumpkin pie, 3 eggs, 1 can of pumpkin, cinnamon, nutmeg. A little extra brown sugar because Alice believed holidays should forgive small excesses. My throat tightened. Outside the laundry room, laughter rose from the dining table. Somebody said the turkey was perfect. Somebody else asked Brent about work. Then I heard Kelsey say, "We've been blessed. This house has held us through a lot." Blessed. I almost stood up then. I almost walked out with the phone in my hand and read every payment aloud. But I stayed seated, not because I was weak, because I wanted to know if my daughter would correct herself. Even one sentence, even one small, honest thing. My dad helped us. My father stood by us. We would have struggled without him, anything. But she did not. Instead, Brent laughed and said, "A lot of people don't realize what it takes to maintain a home these days." That was when my hand tightened around the phone. My old thumb hovered over the cancellation menu. Cancel recurring support. I did not press it yet. I could hear Miles laughing at something Bonnie said. I could picture Paige standing in the hallway, furious and heartbroken. I could still see Kelsey as a little girl, sitting on Alice's lap, licking whipped cream off a spoon. Love makes clean decisions dirty. That is why people use it against you. My phone buzzed again. Not Paige this time. June Abbott. I had texted her earlier, after the reminder appeared, asking one simple question. "Can voluntary support be stopped tonight?" Her reply came in 2 lines. "Voluntary support can be stopped at any time unless you choose otherwise." Then another message. "Do not let guilt become an automatic payment." I sat very still after reading that. The washer slowed. The dryer clicked softly. The little laundry room felt suddenly too small for all the truth inside it. I opened the support agreement on my phone. June had insisted I keep a copy in cloud storage. She had even named the file clearly because she said, "Old men and daughters in crisis both misplace things when emotions get loud." Family mortgage, hardship, support agreement. I scrolled to the section she had made me include. Third-party support is voluntary, revocable, and does not constitute borrower entitlement, ownership transfer, co-sign obligation, or indefinite family obligation. There it was. A sentence I had signed to protect myself from a future I did not want to imagine. And here I was, sitting in it. The door opened slightly. Paige stood there. Her face was wet, though she was trying hard to look steady. "Grandpa," she whispered. "I'm sorry." I shook my head. "Not yours to apologize for." She said the bank helped. I heard. She let everyone believe it. I heard that too. Paige looked at the tray, the plate, the washer. Something in her face changed from sadness to anger. "You paid for this house, and she put you here?" I looked down at my cold turkey. Apparently, I contributed better through a payment portal than in person. She pressed her lips together so she would not cry harder. Then she said, "If Grandma Alice were here..." "She isn't." My voice came out sharper than I meant. Paige flinched. I softened immediately. "I'm sorry, sweetheart." "No," she said. "You're allowed." That surprised me. Maybe because old men are not often told they are allowed to hurt. Paige stepped closer and lowered her voice. "They're going to ask you for more." I looked up. "What?" "After dessert. I heard Brent say it. Another year of support." The room seemed to tilt. She continued quickly, like she needed to get it out before courage failed. "He said you'd do it if they framed it around me and Miles." I stared at her. My heart did something slow and heavy. Not dangerous, just sad. There are moments when betrayal stops surprising you and starts becoming clear. "Did your mother answer?" Paige nodded. She said, "Maybe." Maybe. That was the word that finally broke something open in me. Not yes, not no. Maybe. The word of a person who already knows something is wrong, but is still measuring whether it might work. I looked back at the screen. Cancel recurring third-party mortgage support? A button below it. Continue. Another below that. Cancel support. My thumb moved closer. Then the dining room grew quiet. Kelsey's voice rose, warm and bright, carrying through the half-open laundry room door. "To the home we fought so hard to keep." Glasses clinked. People murmured agreement. My thumb stopped over the button. I looked at Paige, then at Alice's recipe card, then at the cold plate shaking faintly every time the washer settled. I had my thumb over the cancel button when I heard my daughter raise a glass to a home she never told anyone I had saved. I did not press the button yet. That may disappoint some people. Maybe they think I should have canceled the payment the second my daughter put that paper plate beside the washer. Maybe they are right. But people who have never loved a child through disappointment do not always understand how slow the hand can move when the heart is still trying to protect them. I sat in that laundry room with my thumb above the screen. Cancel support. 2 words. Simple words. But behind them were Paige's tuition worries, Miles's bedroom, Kelsey's pride, Brent's debt, and Alice's voice in my memory telling me not to let money make the family cruel. Then I heard Kelsey's toast from the dining room. "To the home we fought so hard to keep." Glasses clinked. People murmured. Brent added, "Some people don't understand what it takes to keep a house anymore." The room laughed lightly. Not because they knew what he meant, because guests laugh when hosts speak confidently. I looked down at my plate. The turkey had gone cold. The mashed potatoes had formed a thin, dry skin on top. The folding tray shook whenever the washer settled into its slow, uneven rhythm. Beside my plate, Alice's recipe card rested like a witness. Her handwriting was still neat after all those years. Pumpkin pie, a little extra brown sugar. Do not overbake. That last line made my throat tighten. Do not overbake. Alice had left warnings in recipes clearer than some people left in legal papers. The dryer buzzer screamed. Sharp, ugly, perfect timing. It cut straight through the dining room laughter. For 1 second, everything stopped. Then the conversation resumed, like even the house had decided my corner of it did not matter. I almost smiled. Even the dryer knew when something was finished. The door opened a little wider. Bonnie Ames stepped in, carrying a folding chair. She did not ask permission. She simply unfolded it near the washer and sat down across from me. "Bonnie," I said softly, "you don't have to do that." "I know." She looked at my paper plate, then at the recipe card, then at the laundry basket beside the dryer. Her mouth tightened. "Alice would haunt this washer before she let you eat here." I let out one quiet breath that almost became a laugh. "She would start with the dryer," I said. "It always did make too much noise." Bonnie smiled, but her eyes were wet. She fed children who had nothing in their lunchboxes and still made them feel like guests. "Your daughter knows better." That sentence hurt because it was true. Kelsey did know better. She had been raised at Alice's table. She had seen her mother put extra soup in containers for neighbors, seen her slide a chair over when a lonely widower came by, seen her tell children that seconds were not shameful. Kelsey had not forgotten. She had chosen a different rule. Bonnie touched the edge of the folding tray. "Do you want me to say something?" I looked toward the dining room. "No. Orson, not yet." She understood the last two words. Not yet. Not never. Before she could answer, Miles slipped into the doorway. He held a napkin folded into a small square. Inside was a slice of pie. The edge was uneven, cut by a child trying to be careful and failing in the sweetest possible way. "Grandpa," he whispered, "I saved you dessert." Bonnie turned her face away. I think she did not want the boy to see her cry. I took the napkin from him. "Thank you, Miles." He looked at the tray, then at Bonnie, then at me. "Why can't you sit with us?" There it was again. The simple question no adult in that house had the courage to answer. I looked at that boy and felt the anger leave me for just a moment, replaced by something sadder. "I think," I said slowly, "some people forgot what a table is for." Miles frowned. "Mom said there wasn't room." Bonnie gave a small sound under her breath. I looked at the dining room through the crack in the door. "There is always room when people want there to be." Miles nodded like he understood more than he should. Then Kelsey called his name. Not angry, worried, like she suddenly sensed the wrong person was learning the right lesson. Miles stepped back, but before leaving, he whispered, "I like sitting by you." That nearly broke me. After he left, Paige appeared in the hallway. She did not come in this time. She just stood where I could see her. Her phone was in her hand. Her face was pale. She mouthed one word. "Now." Then my phone buzzed. A screenshot from Paige. Messages between Kelsey and Brent. "Brent, after pie, I'll talk to him. He won't say no in front of everybody." Kelsey, "Don't push too hard." Brent, "Frame it around Paige and Miles. He always caves for them." Kelsey, "We only need 1 more year." Brent, "And maybe bring up the ranch house. Too much house for one old man anyway." The room went very quiet. Not outside. Outside, the dining room was alive with forks, plates, praise, and the soft performance of gratitude. But inside me, everything stopped. The ranch house. My little 1-story home with the porch Alice loved. The house where her garden gloves still sat in the mudroom. The house where I still slept on the left side of the bed because after a long marriage, even grief has assigned seating. Too much house for one old man. I read the line again, then again. It did not get easier. Bonnie saw my face. "What is it?" I handed her the phone. She read the messages and went still. When she handed it back, Her voice was low. "Orson, this is not asking for help. This is hunting." That was the word. Hunting. Not for my money only. For my guilt. For my age. For the soft places in me they knew still belonged to Paige and Miles. Suddenly the laundry room made sense in a way I wished it did not. They had not put me there only because I embarrassed them. They had put me there to make me smaller before asking for more. A man who accepts a folding tray might accept another payment. A father who stays quiet beside the washer might stay quiet while his own home becomes too much house. My phone screen still showed the mortgage portal behind Paige's screenshot. Cancel recurring third-party mortgage support? Confirm? Go back. Outside, Kelsey laughed at something Tori said. Then Tori's bright voice floated through the hallway. "Kelsey, you make family look effortless." Kelsey answered, soft and proud. "We've had to make hard choices. Hard choices." I looked around the laundry room, at the washer, at the folding tray, at the cold plate, at Alice's recipe card, at the slice of pie Miles had smuggled in like kindness was contraband. And I thought, maybe this is what happens when you pay for a seat at a table that was never being saved for you. Brent's voice came next, lower but still clear enough. "After pie, I'll talk to him." A pause. Then he added, "He won't say no in front of everybody." I stood up slowly. Bonnie stood too. "Orson?" I picked up the folding tray with both hands. The paper plate slid slightly, gravy streaking toward the edge. I placed Alice's recipe card on top of the tray, beside the cold turkey. Then I looked at Paige in the hallway. She was crying silently now. I said, "Your grandmother used to say every truth deserves a chair." Paige stepped aside. Bonnie opened the laundry room door all the way. The dining room light spilled across the floor. So I picked up the folding tray, carried my cold Thanksgiving plate toward the dining room, and decided the truth was finally going to sit at the table. The dining room went quiet before I reached the table. That is how you know people understand more than they are pretending to. Conversations do not stop all at once unless something true has entered the room. I carried the folding tray with both hands. Cold turkey, a bent plastic fork, a paper plate with gravy sliding toward one corner. Alice's recipe card resting on top like a solemn white flag from a war nobody wanted to admit had started. Kelsey saw me first. Her face changed. Not into guilt, not yet. Into panic. "Dad," she said softly, "what are you doing?" I set the folding tray at the empty end of the dining table. The tray legs rattled against the hardwood. That sound was louder than it should have been. Brent stood halfway from his chair. "Orson, come on! Not in front of everyone!" I looked at him. That was the plan, wasn't it? He blinked. "What?" "Not in front of everyone." Nobody moved. Tori Benson sat with her fork halfway above her plate. A woman like Tori knew when a room had stopped being picturesque. She looked down at her napkin like linen might save her from witnessing a family's truth. Bonnie Ames stood behind me, one hand on the back of a chair. Paige stayed near the hallway. Miles sat very still. That hurt most. Children should not have to become quiet because adults are afraid of honesty. Kelsey stepped closer and lowered her voice. "Dad, please, we can talk after dessert." "No," I said. "After dessert is when Brent planned to talk to me." Brent's jaw tightened. Kelsey's eyes flicked toward him. Small movement, big confession. I took my phone from my pocket and placed it beside Alice's recipe card. The message from Paige was still open. Brent saw it. His face hardened. "You showed him private messages?" Paige flinched. I turned slowly. "Private is what you call a conversation when you are ashamed to say it at the table." Brent pointed toward Paige. "She had no right." "Careful," I said. My voice was not loud. That made it stronger. I had spent too many years in mortgage offices listening to angry borrowers, frightened spouses, and smooth-talking sons-in-law. Volume rarely scared me. Patterns did. Brent sat back down, but his eyes stayed sharp. Kelsey whispered, "What messages?" I looked at her. You tell me. Her mouth opened, then closed. There it was again. Maybe. The same maybe that had let humiliation become a seating arrangement. I picked up the phone and read the first line. After pie, I'll talk to him. He won't say no in front of everybody. The dining room seemed to shrink. I read the next one. Frame it around Paige and Miles. He always caves for them. Paige started crying silently. Miles looked at his mother, not angry, confused. That was worse. Kelsey's face had gone pale now. Dad, it wasn't like that. I nodded once. Then explain it. She looked toward Brent. He did not help her. Men like Brent push you toward the cliff, then study their shoes when you fall. Kelsey swallowed. We were going to ask for help. You were going to ask for another year. Her eyes closed. So it was true. Tori shifted uncomfortably in her chair. Someone near the far side of the table muttered, Maybe this should be private. Bonnie answered before I could. It became public when they put him beside the washing machine. No one argued with Bonnie. Smart people rarely did. I read the last message, even though part of me did not want Miles to hear it. And maybe bring up the ranch house. Too much house for one old man anyway. Kelsey covered her mouth. Brent finally snapped. That was one line in a stressful conversation. I looked at him for a long moment. One line can tell you where a man's eyes have been looking. He scoffed. Your house sits half empty. My wife's house, I said. That stopped him. My wife's garden gloves are still in the mudroom. Her books are still beside the chair. Her apron still hangs behind the pantry door because I am not ready to move it. You called that too much house, because grief does not appraise well on your spreadsheet. The room went quiet in a different way then, softer, more ashamed. Kelsey sat down slowly, as if her legs had lost the argument. Dad, she said, we are drowning. I know. Her eyes lifted quickly. I don't think you do. Kelsey, I worked mortgage servicing for 30 years. I know what drowning looks like before the water reaches the mouth. She began to cry, real tears now. Not hostess tears, not embarrassment tears, fear. I couldn't lose the house, she said. After Mom died, this place was the first thing that felt like mine, like I had built something stable. I believed her. That was the painful part. I believed the fear. I believed the shame. I believed the late-night panic, the bills, the grocery prices, the escrow increase, the pressure of looking successful, while quietly falling behind. But pain does not give you permission to use people. Brent leaned forward. Then you understand why we needed a plan. I turned to him. No, I understand why you needed help. The plan was the part that smelled rotten. Kelsey wiped her face. Dad, I was going to tell you. When? She did not answer. Before or after dessert? Her shoulders shook. I continued, quieter now. Before or after you let me sit in the laundry room long enough to remember my place? That landed where it needed to. Her face collapsed. I didn't mean for it to feel like that. It was a folding tray beside a washer, Kelsey. How else was it supposed to feel? Miles whispered, Mom. She looked at him and broke a little more. Good. Not because I wanted her broken, because sometimes the only way back to honesty is through the sound of your child hearing what you did. Brent stood again. This is emotional blackmail. I almost smiled. Interesting phrase. He frowned. You're making a scene to punish us. No, I said. You were preparing to ask for another year of mortgage support after hiding me from your dinner table. I'm not punishing you. I'm finally reading the terms out loud. Then I unlocked my phone. The mortgage support portal was still open behind Paige's screenshot. Cancel recurring third-party mortgage support? Confirm? Go back. Kelsey saw the screen. Her eyes widened. Dad, wait. There it was, the first honest word of the night. Wait. Not because I was hungry, not because I was hurt, because the money was moving. I did wait, I said. 18 months. Brent's mouth tightened. Don't do something stupid. Bonnie stepped forward. Stupid was putting the man paying your mortgage next to the laundry detergent. Tori made a small sound like she wanted to disappear into her chair. I looked at Kelsey. I did not cancel your loan. I cannot do that. The mortgage is yours. Your name, your obligation, your house. She stared at me through tears. What are you saying? I'm saying I am canceling the support I was paying for you. The room became completely still. Even the candles seemed to stop moving. Kelsey whispered, But December will be yours to handle. Brent said, That could put us behind. Yes. You'd do that to your grandchildren? There it was, the hook, Paige and Miles, the soft place they had planned to use. I turned toward my grandchildren. I will help Paige. I will help Miles. Tuition, school needs, groceries if necessary, medicine if necessary. Directly, carefully, with records. But I will not keep sending money into a house where my help gets a seat, and I get a laundry room. Paige covered her face. Miles looked down at his plate. Kelsey sobbed once. Then my phone buzzed with a message from June Abbott. I had forgotten she might still be waiting for my update. Voluntary support can be stopped now. If you continue, document new terms. Do not let humiliation become consent. I read it aloud. Brent looked toward the door like he wanted to leave his own dining room. Kelsey whispered, Who is June? The woman who witnessed the agreement you were hoping I forgot. I opened the support agreement next. I did not read the whole thing. I did not need to. Just one line. Third-party support is voluntary, revocable, and does not constitute borrower entitlement, ownership transfer, cosign obligation, or indefinite family obligation. Nobody ate. Nobody breathed comfortably. And for the first time all evening, the beautiful house looked exactly like what it was. Not a home held together by hard work and faith. A home held together by silence, borrowed pride, and an old man's automatic payment. I put my thumb over confirm. Kelsey stood so quickly, her chair scraped the floor. Dad, please. I looked at her. I love you. That made her cry harder. I love Paige. I love Miles. And that is why this has to stop before there is nothing left between us except money. Then I pressed. Confirm. The screen changed. Recurring third-party mortgage support canceled. A second later, Kelsey's phone buzzed on the table. Then Brent's, then mine. The mortgage servicing notification arrived like a bell at the end of a long performance. December third-party support payment discontinued. Borrower responsible for scheduled payment. No one touched the pie. No one asked for coffee. I picked up Alice's recipe card and placed it beside the payment cancellation on my phone. Then I said the only sentence left in me. You told me I didn't contribute anymore, so I stopped contributing. And that was when Kelsey realized dessert was no longer the most important thing waiting at the table. The notification sat on the table between the pumpkin pie and my cold paper plate. Recurring third-party mortgage support canceled. It was not loud. It did not need to be. Some sentences do not shout because they already know every person in the room is listening. Kelsey stared at her phone like if she looked long enough, the words might rearrange themselves into mercy. Brent grabbed his phone first. Of course he did. Men like Brent always reach for the numbers before they reach for the people. This can be reversed, he said quickly. Right? Orson, tell me this can be reversed. I looked at him. That depends. On what? On whether you mean the payment or the damage. He had no answer for that. Kelsey sat back down slowly. Her face had gone pale under the soft dining room lights. All evening, she had moved through that house like someone directing a scene. Now the scene had turned and started directing her. Tori Benson finally set her fork down. Bonnie Ames stood near me, arms crossed, looking at Kelsey with the kind of disappointment only an old family friend can deliver without raising her voice. Paige was crying. Miles looked from his mother to me, then to the phone on the table. "Mom," he asked softly, "Grandpa paid for our house?" No adult sentence could have hurt more than that child's question. Kelsey covered her mouth. Brent stepped in fast. "No, buddy, it's more complicated than that." I turned toward him. "No, Brent. It became complicated because everyone kept dressing the truth in nicer clothes." He glared at me. "You're humiliating your daughter." I looked down at the folding tray, the bent plastic fork, the cold turkey, the laundry room still visible through the hallway behind me. "Funny," I said. "Humiliation only started bothering you when it moved into the dining room." Bonnie made a small sound under her breath. Not a laugh. Something sharper. Kelsey whispered, "Dad, please don't do this in front of everyone." I waited a second before answering. "You did this in front of everyone. You just put me in a room where you thought they wouldn't have to see it." Silence fell again. Not empty silence. Full silence. The kind that makes people examine their own hands because eye contact has become too expensive. I opened the folder on my phone and turned the screen so Kelsey could see. Payment history. 18 months. $2,850. Again. 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 The list looked endless when you knew what each line had cost. "This is not all of it," I said. My voice stayed calm. That surprised me. I had expected anger to sound louder when it finally arrived, but maybe real anger, the kind that has finished being wounded, does not need to perform. I scrolled further. Escrow shortage payment, $9,400. Kelsey's eyes closed. Brent muttered, "We were going to pay that back." I turned to him. "When?" He looked away. "Exactly." I continued. Total mortgage support, $51,300. Escrow shortage, $9,400. That does not include the camper I sold, the roof repair I delayed, or the nights I sat in my kitchen moving money around, so my daughter could sleep under this roof without hearing the word default. Kelsey started crying harder. Not loud. Worse. Quietly. Like someone realizing the floor under her life had been made from somebody else's sacrifice. Tori whispered, "Kelsey, is that true?" Kelsey did not answer. Paige did. "Yes." One word. That was all it took. Brent's face hardened. "Paige, stay out of this." She lifted her head. "No." The word sounded small, but it landed beautifully. "No," she said again, stronger. "Mom told people the bank helped. She never said Grandpa did." Kelsey looked at her daughter. "Paige, I was ashamed." Paige wiped her face. Of being helped? Or of who helped you? That question struck the whole table, because the answer was sitting right there in the laundry room. I placed Alice's recipe card beside my phone. Pumpkin pie. Her handwriting. Her little warning not to overbake. "Kelsey," I said, "your mother spent her whole life making sure children who had nothing in their lunchboxes still felt welcome at a table." Kelsey could not look at the card. "You served her recipe tonight." I pointed gently toward the laundry room. "And you served me next to the washer." Miles began to cry then. Not loudly, just enough for Kelsey to hear it. That did what my numbers could not. Numbers can expose a lie. A child's tears can expose the cost. Brent pushed his chair back. "This is ridiculous. Orson, you are overreacting because your feelings got hurt." I looked at him for a long moment. "You were planning to ask for another year of payments." His mouth closed. "You were planning to mention Paige and Miles because you believed I would not say no if you put their names in front of me." Kelsey looked down. "And you talked about my ranch house." Brent's expression flickered. There it was. Fear, not remorse. Fear of being seen. I unlocked my phone again and called June Abbott. She answered on the second ring. "Orson?" "June, you're on speaker." Brent muttered, "Oh, for God's sake." June's voice came through dry and firm. "Then I'll use my polite voice." Bonnie almost smiled. I said, "Please confirm the support terms." June did not hesitate. The third-party mortgage support from Orson Whitcomb to Kelsey and Brent Dane was voluntary. It was not a cosign obligation. It was not an ownership transfer. It was not indefinite. Mr. Whitcomb had the right to stop recurring support at any time. Brent leaned toward the phone. "You don't understand the family situation," June answered calmly. "I understand mortgage language. Family situations are where people usually try to hide from it." That shut him down. I asked, "Does canceling my support cancel their mortgage?" "No," June said. "The mortgage remains the borrower's responsibility. They will need to make the scheduled payment, contact the servicer, or work with a housing counselor. The house does not disappear because support stops." Then she paused. "But the illusion does." The room absorbed that. Kelsey bent over the table and cried into both hands. I did not enjoy it. I need that understood. Some people imagine revenge as sweetness. It is not. Real justice inside a family tastes like metal. Even when you are right, part of you bleeds. I looked at my daughter and remembered her at 6 years old, standing on a chair beside Alice, pressing pie crust with both thumbs. I remembered her at 16, slamming doors. I remembered her at 30, holding Paige as a baby and asking Alice if motherhood ever stopped feeling terrifying. I loved all those versions of her. I still loved this broken one, but love could not be allowed to keep paying invoices for disrespect. "Kelsey," I said softly. She looked up. "From tonight on, Brent does not contact me about money. Not by phone, not by email, not through you, not through the children." Brent scoffed. I ignored him. "If help is needed for Paige's tuition, I will pay the school directly. If Miles needs medicine, food, school expenses, I will handle those directly or through June. Not cash, not mortgage support, not lifestyle repairs dressed up as family emergencies." Paige covered out her mouth. Miles looked confused, but calmer. Kelsey whispered, "Dad, what about the house?" I breathed slowly. "That house is yours. The mortgage is yours. The work now is yours." Her face crumpled again. "You'd let us fall behind?" "I let you lean on me for 18 months. That's not an answer." "It is," I said. "You just don't like that it has a period at the end." Bonnie stepped beside me. "Kelsey, your father did not shame you by telling the truth. You shamed him by hiding him while standing under the roof he helped save." Kelsey looked at Bonnie, then at Alice's recipe card. For once, she did not defend herself. Tori Benson stood quietly. "I should go," she said. Nobody stopped her. There would be no perfect Thanksgiving photos that night. No caption about gratitude. No polished post about resilience and home. Just a dining room full of people staring at the cost of a lie. I picked up the folding tray. The cold plate slid slightly again. Kelsey stood. "Dad, please stay." I shook my head. "Not tonight. Please." Her voice sounded younger. That nearly reached me. Nearly. But then I looked toward the laundry room. The washer door was still open. The paper napkin I had not used was still on the little tray. The space still smelled like detergent and insult. "No," I said. "Tonight, I am going home to the house your mother and I built honestly." Paige moved toward me. "Grandpa, I can drive you." I touched her cheek. "Stay with your brother." Miles stood up suddenly and came to me. He hugged my waist. Children always know where the truth hurts. I put my hand on his head. "You did nothing wrong, buddy." He whispered, "I didn't like you in there." "Neither did I." That made him cry harder. I looked at Kelsey over his head. She saw it then. Not the mortgage, not the cancellation. The memory her son would carry. That was the first time I saw real shame break through her panic. I took Alice's recipe card from the table and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Kelsey noticed. "Dad, that's Mom's recipe." I looked at her. "No, it's Alice's handwriting." There was a difference. Then I walked toward the front door. Behind me, Brent said nothing, for once. Kelsey followed me onto the porch, crying openly now, no longer caring who saw. The cold Michigan air hit my face. "Dad," she said, voice breaking, "are you really going to let us lose the house?" I turned back, porch light on her face, a beautiful house behind her, a broken truth between us. "No, Kelsey," I said quietly. "I'm going to let you finally admit who saved it." That night, my daughter did not lose her house, but she lost the lie that had been living inside it. By May of 2026, the house was still standing. That matters, because some people heard what I did that Thanksgiving night and assumed I wanted my daughter to lose everything. I did not. I wanted her to stop living inside a lie I was paying for. Kelsey and Brent had to call the mortgage servicer themselves. They had to sit with a housing counselor named Glenna Price and go through the numbers line by line. They sold Brent's second car. Kelsey took on extra organizing jobs she used to think were beneath her. Brent had to face his credit card debt instead of calling it cash flow timing. None of that was easy, but easy was never the point. The point was honesty. I stopped the automatic mortgage support completely. No more quiet payments. No more emergency checks wrapped in family guilt. No more conversations where Brent used Paige and Miles like handles to pull money out of me. I still helped my grandchildren. Paige's community college tuition went directly to the school. Miles got a small education account in his name. When groceries or medicine were truly needed, June Abbott helped me send support the right way, with records and boundaries. That word used to sound cold to me. Boundaries. Now I understand it differently. A boundary is not a wall built against love. Sometimes it is the fence that keeps love from becoming abuse. Kelsey did not apologize right away. At first, she defended herself. "I was overwhelmed." "I didn't mean it that way." "You embarrassed me too, Dad." I listened. Then I said, "Kelsey, I sat beside a washing machine while you served your mother's pie." That ended most of her excuses. Bonnie Ames told her something sharper. Alice would have fed a stranger before she hit her husband. Kelsey cried when she heard that. Not the kind of crying that fixes anything, but the kind that begins removing the paint from a lie. The next month, I started the Alice Whitcomb Family Table Fund at the community center. It was not a charity for people who simply wanted money. It was a workshop for older parents and adult children who did not know how to talk about help without turning love into pressure. We covered family loan boundaries, third-party mortgage support, cosign risk, escrow shortages, written agreements, and the quiet danger of letting shame decide where someone sits in a family. The first session had 12 people. The second had 31. That told me something sad about this country. A lot of parents are paying for chairs they are no longer allowed to sit in. At one workshop, an old man asked if he could write "no loan requests during pumpkin pie" into a family agreement. I told him that should be printed on every Thanksgiving napkin. People laughed. I did too. It felt good to laugh without pretending nothing hurt. Kelsey finally made her public acknowledgement in that same community room. Paige was there. Miles was there. June was there. Bonnie was there. Brent was not invited to speak about money. Kelsey stood with her hands folded and said, "I made my father look like a burden because I was ashamed he was the one carrying us." Her voice broke. She kept going. "I put him in the laundry room while he was paying the mortgage that kept our dining room full." That was the sentence I needed. Not because it erased the pain. It did not. But truth gives grief somewhere honest to stand. Afterward, she came to me and asked, "Can we start over?" I looked at my daughter for a long time. The little girl was still in there. So was the woman who hurt me. Both were true. "I still love you," I said. "But love does not restart automatic payments." She nodded. For once, she did not argue. That felt like progress. The next Thanksgiving, I did not go back to Kelsey's house. Not yet. Instead, we held a small dinner at the community center for older folks who did not want to eat alone. Paige helped set the tables. Miles passed out rolls. Kelsey came early and placed chairs before she touched a single plate. I noticed that. I think Alice would have too. I kept her recipe card in my jacket pocket that night, not on display, not as decoration, close to my heart, where handwriting belongs when the person is gone, but the lesson remains. A mortgage can keep a roof over a family, but gratitude is what keeps that roof from becoming a lie. I learned that love should never have to buy a seat at the table. And if someone tells you that you no longer contribute while living under the shelter of your sacrifice, maybe it is time to let the truth sit down before dessert. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Please tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is where you are right now. And wherever you are, take care of your health, protect your dignity, and never let love become an automatic payment that nobody respects. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to subscribe to Final Act Revenge. Another story is waiting for you on your screen right now, and YouTube believes you may enjoy it.